I was warned about the night wind long before I ever felt it. It had a name in the village dialect no one wrote down, a mouthful of consonants that sounded like a throat-clearing blood. The old women said to shutter the windows when the sky turned the color of iron filings and the dogs refused to bark. The men said nothing at all. They just looked away from the hills and kept their hands on the latches. Children turned superstitions into dares and lost their appetites at the first gust. I thought it was a story to police bedtime, a way to explain nosebleeds and headaches, a folk cure in the shape of a warning. But the first time the wind found me, it found the quiet places in my body and taught them how to leak their secrets. It does not arrive with thunder. It does not announce itself like weather. The day goes flat, as if a painter had taken all the gloss out of the world. The trees stand politely as though they have guests they don't like. The birds forget the point of their throats. Somewhere far off, a gate slaps once and then remembers its manners. Inside the house, the glass goes thoughtful. It is not cold, not warm, just the temperature of decision. That is when you close the shutters. That is when you damp the towel for the crack under the door. That is when you move your chair away from the window and pretend to read while all the words turn the color of dried cherries. I did none of those things the first time. I unlatched the window to let the stale afternoon out. The hills were a single line, blue enough to mean distance, and the fields had learned their green again after weeks of sick heat. I leaned on the sill and did not notice the silence until it had already decided me. Then the air moved, not a gust, not a draft, but the kind of movement that happens when someone in the next room stands very slowly. The hair along my forearms lifted as if they had their own thoughts. And then, very politely, my nose filled with the taste of metal and my upper lip warmed. When I touched it, my fingers came away red. Not much, a small apology. Enough to teach me I had left the latch open on the wrong day. The village calls it a wind because we need a noun for our fear. But what it does is closer to a verb. It passes and, in passing, it draws things forward that were loyal to staying hidden. The thin places give first. The corners of the eyes, the soft hell of the gums, the fragile highway in the nose, the line where the skin of the lip meets the mouth's wet politics. Then the less obvious, the inside of the ear that had healed wrong after a summer infection, the old incision whose scar had been a boast, the secret seams of the body that only doctors and lovers learn. It never tears, it asks. And the asking opens you. I did what people do when a story stops being theatrical and becomes intimate. I shut the window with the efficiency of an apology. I pressed a towel under the door and thought of weather stripping. I leaned my head back and pinched the bridge of my nose and waited for the red to become brown. The house had the good manners to creak as if it were old bones and not fear. I told myself it was a coincidence. I told myself the same thing when a thin pink line appeared along my gum line and I tasted salt behind my molars. By the time the wind had moved on and the night remembered stars, I had folded all my towels into smaller shapes and learned the names of capillaries. After that, I watched the sky the way a person watches a friend who drinks too much, hopeful, suspicious, kind. Days passed with their polite chores and their small decisions. I kept a saucer of salt on the windowsill like my grandmother had done to keep saints busy. I learned the color the world turns before the wind arrives, not rose, not dusk, a sort of thoughtful ash. And when it came again, I was ready with all the human protections, cloth and latch, distance and denial. You can make your home into a fortress and the air will still know how to enter. The second time, the red gathered at the corner of my eye and traced a tiny, perfect path down my cheekbone like a thread a seamstress had placed for later. It did not hurt. That is part of its cruelty. Pain would be a warning. This was an invitation written in your own ink. People tell stories about where it comes from. The sensible ones say minerals in the valley rise when pressure falls and the air becomes a tonic for bleeding. The cruel ones say the wind is made of all the names the river refused to keep, torn to letters and taught to move. The old ones say it began the night the quarry collapsed and the men inside found a smaller world to live in, that the air learned grief and has been practicing ever since. I do not know. I only know how it behaves with me. as if it knows my medical history better than I do. As if it has seen every needle that has ever been inside me and marked the old paths. As if it can smell the stories I never told and wants a note from each one. You can tell who lives with it by the way they arrange their evenings. We eat earlier. We drink water before we are thirsty. We do not shave after 3. We keep our nails short so that our limbs do not absent-mindedly scratch themselves into signatures. We keep cloths in bowls like offerings to a god who denies ritual. We talk while the sky is still honest and the dogs remember their voices. When the color changes, we do not say goodnight. We simply place a hand on a shoulder and step into our separate rooms. There is mercy in pretending you can keep it from the ones you love by closing different doors. It does not take everyone every night. There are nights when it passes like a memory that decided to be kind. There are nights when it chooses one person and leaves the rest with only the smell of iron and salt and the knowledge that they were considered and spared. There are nights when it takes a house and leaves the neighbors untouched, like rain in old stories. And there was one night when it took the whole street and the ditch and the part of the road where the asphalt had learned to complain. And the morning found handprints in brown on all the doors where people had leaned while they waited for their mouths to learn their own intentions again. The strangest part is how it follows. Not like weather, like a forgot-to-be-finished sentence. I left for the city the second autumn, thinking taller buildings and busier air would teach it manners. City Wind has other hobbies. It likes newspapers, hats, and small people. It rounds corners like laughter. But 3 floors up in a room with no history, I woke to that ash-colored silence and the feeling that a neighbor had put their mouth to my keyhole and breathed. The window was closed. The towels were obedient. Still, I tasted the coin. Still, my ear sang that fine, thin song it had learned as a child. In the morning, the bathwater had a pink ring that insisted it was reasonable. I have listened to the ways it announces itself. There is the light that goes thinner without dimming. There is the clock that stutters and remembers. There is the glass that goes thinking. There is the pane that trembles even though no branch is near it. There is the house that settles in a way that is not settling. It is bracing. There is the small, crisp pop of a capillary giving up its position somewhere under the skin like a soldier stepping backward from a line. And there is the whisper no ear hears, but every mouth obeys, open. Some nights I sit on the floor with a wet cloth over my face, a string of salt across the windowsill, and a foolish line of garlic because I am not above borrowing from other fears. The wind asks nothing of the garlic. It moves through the house like a person reconciling with an old lover, not apologizing, not asking, just inventorying. Door frames, photographs, the lip of the sugar jar, the seam in the wallpaper that never agreed to lie flat. In the bedroom, it turns the photographs inward on their easels as if modesty were a virtue. In the kitchen, it reads the calendar and approves of nothing. In the hallway, it places its hand on the part of the wall where my shoulder has nicked the paint and, for a second, I think I feel it warm. People try to make deals with it. We have buried knives at the property line to cut its path. We have hung red thread above the threshold because red is supposed to teach red about itself. We have chalked the sills with symbols old enough to have outlived their own meanings. We have left water on the table like a courtesy for a guest who won't drink. Some swear by iron kettles on stovetops. Some say copper bracelets remind the blood to stay civilized. I have done all of these, and sometimes I believe they work. And sometimes I believe it noticed my effort and simply learned the polite way in. Like a host stepping aside to let a person carrying a heavy dish pass first. I have seen what it does to grief. On the night my neighbor lost her brother 3 towns over, the wind arrived early, before the sky had darkened properly, and sat on her doorstep like a cat bee for choosing to sit on your lap. She did not open the door. She is a sensible woman. The wind does not need doors. It breathed through the mail slot like a child with a seashell. The next morning her sink had the same pink ring mine had learned, and she said her mouth tasted like fever dreams, metal and lemons. She did not cry at the funeral. I had already, she said, and I believed her. When strangers ask, We warn them gently because warnings need to keep their manners to be heard. If the evening looks tired, go in, we say. If the trees seem to be listening to you instead of the wind, close your windows. They nod because they are guests. And you can see the decision forming to tell the story later. Those countryside people, they will say in some bar where the music is too loud. They think the air has a taste for blood. And then one night, in a borrowed cottage, they will feel the glass go thoughtful and they will remember the part about towels and latches. The wind will be kind the first time. The wind likes to teach, not scold. It will draw a neat red crescent at the corner of their mouth as if placing a comma where a sentence was running on. And in the morning they will leave a note in the kitchen thanking us for the gem and the warning and never once using the word haunted. Though their eyes will be very careful when they meet ours. I have tried to measure it. Because measurement is a confession I know how to make. Barometer, hygrometer, strips of paper taped to glass, a bowl of milk left by the sill to see how quickly it films, a candle that insists on lurching even when the air is ecclesiastical. The instruments make their numbers and then shrug. The only reliable gauge is a human body. The only unit that matters is a drop. On nights when it loves me, it takes almost nothing and leaves me embarrassed by my caution. On nights when it doesn't, it collects me in spoons and waits with the patience of stone while I find cloth and casual profanity. It does not kill you, not on purpose. It has no knives and keeps no ledgers. But there was a winter when the town's doctor grew thin from sleeplessness and 3 old men at the cafe took to wearing black handkerchiefs in their breast pockets for the convenience of it. And the woman in the bakery put salt in the dough and then remembered why she had meant to and cried, well, the loaves rose. We buried to that season for reasons the doctor wrote in Latin that did not comfort us. The wind came to the funerals and behaved like weather, and we pretended we did not feel it press the lids of our eyes politely from the inside. It is not always cruel. There is a mercy to it when it chooses. On the night my mother's hands finally forgot how to be hands, the wind came soft and early, and we shut the windows and did all the proper rituals. And still a thin red line traced her smile. She looked almost pleased. See, she said in the voice of a person who has been vindicated about something nobody else remembers. It knows. We settled her with towels and affection and the old song she hated as a girl. And the wind stayed in the corners and did not move the photographs. And in the morning we told ourselves it had been nothing. A trick of color, a fever dream. The pillowcase said otherwise. I washed it with salt. You are wondering why I still live here. People ask in the way city people ask why anyone lives where rivers rise, as if geography were a bad habit. I stay because the wind has taught me a kind of attention I did not know I had. It has given names to the edges of me. It has taught me the minute geometry of my mouth, the cathedral behind my eyes, the small password of my skin. It has taught me how to make rooms gentle, wet cloth, quiet talk, bread before desk, a light on for the lost. I stay because I cannot think of anything less haunted than a place that tells you exactly what it will ask of you and then asks it without spite. There are nights when I do something reckless. I open the window of fingers with and let it through. I sit on the floor with a towel like a supplicant and I say, out loud, I know. It comes like a person deciding whether to love you. It touches the glass first, then the frame, then the rope inside the sash, then the sill. It reads the stack of books and approves of 3, disapproves of 1, forgives the rest. It moves around me the way a crowd parts for a man carrying a newborn, careful, curious, cruel if you startle. And then it places its mouth near my ear and I feel a wetness there that isn't mine. In the morning the pillowcase keeps that truth like a map. Sometimes I think it wants something beyond the small business of drops. Sometimes it feels like a tax collector. Other times, like a priest who has given up on forgiveness and now specializes in noticing. Once early autumn, it traced lines down my calves where the nettles had taught me humility as a child. And for days the old rash burned again in red parentheses as if the season were a sentence the world had not finished writing. Once late winter, it found the seam under my ribs where a laugh had made me ache during an illness, and it pressed there with a gentleness that felt like taking inventory. "Still here," it seemed to say, and I answered aloud, "I know, I used to tell this story as a tourist would, with flourishes and safe laughter and the exit already visible. Now I tell it the way a person recites a recipe they know by heart and never measure. Close the windows when the light goes to ash. Wet the cloths and place them where doors forget they are doors. Do not shave or cut or pierce after 3. Speak softly and only of things that will still be true after. Do not stand in the mirror too long. Glass remembers. Do not stare at photographs. Faces are hospitable. Keep salt where it can see. Think of the body as a book you will be asked to dog-ear. When it comes, offer your thanks. When it leaves, change the pillowcase and sing to the sink while you rinse what it taught you. It has learned my name, the wind. It says it without sound by finding the letters my body hides. The M in the place where my brow folds when I pretend I am not afraid. The curve of the I along my cheekbone. The closed vowel of the O it draws in the hollow of my throat when I forget to swallow. The long thin L at the inside of my forearm where I once held a blade against a thought and did not press. On the worst nights it writes my full name by rediscovering every letter I have ever been. And I lie very still and let it spell me until it is. Satisfied that I am still the person it met. On the day I left the latch open, when I leave because we all leave a place eventually even if our bodies do not move. I imagine the wind will learn my absence like a new alphabet. It will come to the window and find a stranger's shoulder in the paint. It will search the hallway for my narrow, anxious step and learn the measure of someone else's feet. It will breathe through the keyhole and taste a life that does not know the rules yet. It will teach them with the same courtesies it taught me. And they will go to the market and ask for extra towels and salt and not say why. And the grocer will know and make the bill smaller by a coin. If you come here, if you take a room at the edge of the fields and think the hills are only hills and the sky only an old sheet the day pulls over itself, I will not frighten you at dinner. I will serve you bread the honest are and we will speak of recipes and repairs and the way the foxes have learned to look both ways. When the light goes to ash, I will open the drawer and take out the towels and set the bowls and say, as if we were about to paint, hold this. You will laugh because the world has not yet leaned toward you. Then the glass will think. Then the clock will stumble and remember. Then the air from the next room will stand up very slowly. And you will taste the coin. Do not be brave. There is no medal and the wind has no interest in winning. Put the towels where the doors pretend they are walls. Sit down. Breathe through your mouth if your nose resents instruction. Let the red be small and polite and a teacher. Do not make speeches to the dark. Do not call it by any name except the one the old women used, which is a sound and not a word. Do not open the window for a dare. Do not close your eyes to be noble. Look at the bowl, at the small water you saved in the bottom for the cat that does not exist. And remember that you are a container and most beautiful when you remember what you hold. When morning comes, and it always does. Even on the longest nights of asking, the sky will look rinsed and innocent and pretend it did not conspire. The birds will remember their throats. The dogs will forgive the air its impoliteness. You will wash the cloths with salt and hang them where the sun can instruct them in other kinds of work. You will open the window and smell the unremarkable day and bless it for its lack of personality. And if you are wise, you will not boast. You will not say you survived the wind. You will say only, we hosted, and set an extra place at the table the next evening for the guest who will not sit. And you will eat kindly and early and keep your laughter low and steady the way we do in houses that have learned to listen to their own breaths. Sometime long after, when you are in a city and the bus surprises you by arriving on time and you have left your village voice behind, you will feel the glass in a shop window go thoughtful as you pass, and your lip will warm in a small, precise way, and your ear will sing the thin song it learned here. You will press your tongue to the roof of your mouth and taste the coin. You will already know where the towels are kept. And you will say the unwritable name in your head, not as a wording but as a remembering. and keep walking with the careful dignity of someone who knows the wind does not belong to a place, but to a verb, and that it has chosen, for a moment, to conjugate itself through you.